Good morning everyone and welcome. Have you ever struggled to create a photo that was interesting in situations that seemed okay, but for some reason as a photographer, as someone with a camera, you just couldn't get it? Yet some friends or other photographers would get that perfect shot from the same situation, and that just is frustrating to you. Well, I see a lot of mistakes made that actually prevent us from getting to that space of creating an image that is emotionally interesting for us and for the viewer. And today I want to share with you 3 of those mistakes I see a lot, and also at the end of this video I will share with you a bonus tip that will help you unlock a new perspective when you're in the field so you take photos you love. Now, if you're ready, let's get started. All right, welcome to this episode. I just came back from New York City and I was reflecting on what I was doing over there in terms of photography and the struggles I had when I was maybe a little less experienced and how I still have some of the struggles. So the first mistake or point you can improve that I've noticed is actually the direction of your look. What do I mean by that? The direction of where you look will influence how you create your photo. That seems pretty obvious, right? So let's take an example in New York City to go a little deeper into it. I'm walking in the street, there is this cop in the middle of the street doing the traffic, and he has a yellow vest, direct light, there's some background with buildings, there's some car passing around, and I'm like, ooh, this kind of looks interesting, the subject really pops. But how am I gonna create something that is visually attractive in that scene? So I took the most obvious shot, which I recommend everyone doing, is take the obvious shot, which is just here, click, I'm taking the photo. It's kind of a shoulder or like, what do you call that? Chest high, and that's the photo, right? Not crazy, nothing much interesting. You get context, but okay, this is a photo that needed to go with other photos in order to create something more interesting. But I was like, what if we can make it a little more dramatic? And for that, I had to change how I look at that scene. The direction of my look was so important. Instead of looking straight, I started looking up. And when I started looking up, 2 things happened. I discovered that there was a giant red light over my head, or like over that crossing, that really looked kind of strange because it was like hanging in the sky. And then I noticed that there were those 2 buildings on the sides that were going deep into, or creating a deep perspective with that street. So at that moment, I was like, ooh, can I change my angle in order to use what is present when you look up into my frame? So I changed my angle, I changed my perspective, and took that photo with the red light and those 2 buildings without the cop at first. And then I was like, oh, now maybe let's try to add that policeman that is in the middle of the road. And this is exactly what I want to highlight. You gotta change your look in order to find compositions that are interesting. Don't stay on just the obvious one. Try to look differently. The same happened with a plane I heard passing by, and it's New York City. We have tall buildings, and I just looked up, saw the plane that was going to go in a kind of like between streets interesting frame, and I took the photo completely shooting upwards. So the benefits of looking up are multiple. First of all, you'll find different compositions. Second of all, you'll find elements that you never thought of taking photos of, and apparently there was a study that even said that the more you look up, the better you feel. And if you've never tried, if you're always looking straight or down, start looking up a little more and it will feel a lot more expansive. Interesting, right? Now, let's go and dig into the second mistake I see that is preventing us from expanding our possibilities of photos. Number 2 is going to be not moving enough. Oof. This one is a little tricky, and I got a great example for you that I will go in depth in detail. But before that, if you don't know me, my name is Pierre-T. Lambert. I'm a travel adventure photographer and the creator of the 30-day adventure to great photos, a step-by-step method for training your photographer's eye and taking photos that you love no matter what kind of gear you use and no matter where you are. I also share photography tutorials and adventures on this YouTube channel, so make sure you subscribe to see the next one. And with that being said, let's talk about movement in a scene. So again, I'm walking around in New York City and suddenly I see this giant Monopoly guy painted on the wall. And I'm like, ooh, interesting. What can I do with that? Somehow I wanted to find a way to have that the character really showcased in my photo. And if I could have juxtaposition in my frame, that would be even better. What is juxtaposition? It is when you have two elements that almost interact with each other in a frame. So this photo with a guy eating a sandwich walking by a poster with a mouth eating granada and that says "want it all," which is an advertisement, is for me what I call a juxtaposition. So you have like two elements that kind of work together. So I wanted to create something similar, or at least something that was as interesting with that Monopoly guy, and I couldn't figure it out. I tried my first angle, which was kind of hiding against a pole, and it was next to the wall. And then because I couldn't figure it out in that spot, I had to move a little bit to my right. I looked up and I was like, okay, what if I include that corner of the street? Maybe there will be an interesting character here, right? So I have that Monopoly guy, the corner of the street, but still doesn't work that well. So then I turn around and there is a car. So I look at the car and I look at the reflection in the car, and I try with a reflection to actually make that character kind of pop in a discrete way, but there's no other character. No one else is passing by and it just doesn't work. So last but not least, I move around again on the scene, and that's when I talk about the dedication to a photo, to an idea, to a creative idea. You need to be moving around in order to make it work. So then I actually went across the street. I think I was on 35mm, and so everything was a little wide in my opinion, and I couldn't go very far and just like zoom in. So what happened is that then I noticed that corner of the street was interesting because now my subjects would pop out a lot on the right corner of the image and we would have that character. So I tried 3 different techniques here, or like 2. One was actually to keep that person in the corner and shoot through a lock that was on the wall, right? And I was like, that kind of isolates that person and we can see a character in the bottom corner. Oh, cool, okay. And then I just used a little bit of that lock because I felt like it reminded me of the Monopoly theme a little bit, and keeping a character in the bottom right corner. And for that, I waited until a character was popping enough, and that character that was popping enough was the guy with the umbrella. And what I'm trying to explain to you in that scene is, you don't have to agree with me that this is the best shot, but what I want you to think about is to move around your point of interest and to try different composition, to try different angles, and really to work with it as if you were working clay. In order to make a cup, you need to work it a long time. I've never done that, but I imagine it takes a long time. You get the idea. Basically, work and create with your environment instead of being passive and trying to just snap whatever is present, first of all at your eye level, and second of all where you are. So move around, change your eye level. Those are the first 2 recapped in one. Now let's move on to the third mistake. The third mistake I see a lot is not using passive elements that are surrounding you. If you follow me on Instagram, you may have seen that little reel where I use the reflection of that weird building on my left in order to create interesting frames with people passing. Using a building, a sidewall, a window to create a reflection is something that is known but is somehow not used that much. And the question is, how do you use it? When do you use it? Well, you may want to use it when you actually find that it creates a symmetry that is interesting, or it creates an imbalance in an image that adds to your image. So let's look at this image where that person seemingly walks into a wall and disappears into the reflection. So we have literally on the left side of the image, and on the right side, that person in yellow, we can see it on the right side. We cannot see her in the left side nor in the reflection. And on top of that, there is a person walking on the left reflection, but she's not present on the right side of the image. And that is what I call an image that starts to like trigger a little bit your curiosity when you look at it, because you're like, ooh, okay, this is making me think a little bit. First of all, there's interesting elements. There's a little bit of symmetry, although it's off center, but like, where did that person go? And how come I can see the shadow reflection, but I cannot see anything about that person's reflection in the window? And to create that, I had to use I think it was like a metro gate or something, or like metro thing to go down. And there was this window that wasn't really clear, but I had to look into and try to play with it, right? I literally played with my angles in order to find some. So I took obvious one where you had perfect symmetry. You can see it with the taxi. It kind of joins and it looks like it's a double taxi, and we have the two poles. That is good. That works. It's an easy one. I love the one with a person walking with a mirror, because then it's like Inception a little bit. You have that mirror with the side window that I'm using. Then you have the mirror with a person carrying a mirror. So it's adding a lot of dimensions and like, how do you call that, elements into it. And the last one, or another one, was just having the people walk through, which turned out to be that yellow photo that I love the most. I literally looked and took probably 20-30, and this is the one that popped the most for me. Now, as promised, I have a bonus tip, but before that, make sure you grab your free cheat sheet in the description, where I share my most used photography settings. I'm sure they will come very handy for you on the field whenever you're confused or you're lacking a few tips like these to create photos that you love. My bonus technique is to swap your point of interest. What do I mean by that? Instead of focusing and having your image sharp on your subject, actually make it sharp on the background. So the guy is sitting on the bench, he's looking at the view of New York City, and the obvious shot was to focus on him and have the view in the background, right? I shot around f3.2, that photo worked, but then I'm like, can we actually reverse that image? Okay, so I'm gonna focus on the background and I'm gonna leave him blurry, again at f3.2, to keep the same aperture to see what the change is. And I'm putting those photos side by side for you to compare and see how it affects the mood of the photo. One is more directed toward the subject, towards the human, him being almost like a character in my image, and the other one is he becomes a non-player character in a way in the image, and it becomes more about New York City and less about him looking at it. It's almost like New York City is present and the person is watching New York City, right? So I'm inviting you to think about how you can shift that. Here's another example. I'm on the ferry, it's at night on the Hudson River, and it's beautiful. And again, we have the windows that are reflecting all the light. We have the buildings reflecting. It's beautiful, as you can see on the image. The most obvious shot was actually to focus on those building reflection and leave the captain in his environment blurry, and then reverse that, meaning focusing on the captain and keeping the building's reflection more as bokeh. And they tell different stories, again, those two photos. And it's up to you to choose which direction you want to go to, but I hope all these will have trigger ideas for you. Let me know in the comments right now. And make sure you watch this video if you want a NIM depth on the field video, and watch this one if you want to learn everything about your autofocus. Now, with that being said, get out there, go shoot, try something different, try something new. I'm sending you all much love, and I'll see you in the next one.